In this video, guys, I'm going to look at, if you're a day trader of the indices, how you can set up your charts in the morning so you're very well prepared for the trading day. Stay tuned. Hey traders, warm welcome to you. Alright, so in this video, I want to kind of focus on, if you're an intraday trader and you're trading the indices, let's say you're trading the US indices, it could be any, but let's say you're at US indices, so if you're in Europe, UK, that kind of time zone, it's a nice opportunity, or it's nice to be able to trade the US markets because they open at 2:30 UK time and close at 9 o'clock UK time. So if you are working, perfect for part-time type trading. So anyway, I'm going to look at the Nasdaq here. I've got a Nasdaq chart up at the moment, and it's a 5-minute chart. Now normally to do your analysis, obviously you're going to look at the daily chart, you're going to do all your bits and pieces, but this is kind of focused on more short-term stuff. So really, when we're selecting Nasdaq on that account, we go to the indices section here, spread bet. You want a spread betting account. Nasdaq is NAS 100 SB. That's our kind of Nasdaq 100, or Pepperstone's equivalent. And what we want to do really is we want to kind of frame the day that we're looking for. So one of the first things that I like to do is I like to look at where the overnight. So assume you've already marked on key levels. If we're going back and we're saying, what was the key level from the prior 5 days, assume you're already doing that. Assume you're kind of looking at your lows, your highs, your resistance levels, your support levels, etc. What I want to do is focus on the levels that perhaps are more important on the very short term. So the first thing I like to do is I like to look at what I call the overnight high. So I'm going to mark down the overnight high, and here I can change it to whatever I want, and I like to have a slight differentiator to show where the overnight session high is. So here on Pepperstone, right, the overnight for me is, if I could put the cursor, I put the crosshairs up, sorry, we look from the close, or around midnight. You can choose. You can either go from the actual close, which on this scale is 10 o'clock, because I've got it on European time setting, so it's 3:30 open till 10 o'clock, and you can see the increase in volume. So this is when the cash session is open, 24/5, with little breaks, little tiny breaks in between, but almost 24/5. So when do you say the overnight session is? For me, the overnight session is going to be what was the high from after the 10 o'clock close if we're European time, 9 o'clock close if we're British time, and what was the low. So it doesn't matter here because, for example, the overnight high was put in at around midday. So I'm going to mark that off. I'm also going to mark off the overnight low. So get my arrow here, and I'm going to move it down to around here. So now I have an idea of what the overnight high and low was, and I'm going to just zoom in so we can see this. There's my overnight high, there's my overnight low. Fine. The other thing I'm going to mark on my chart, and again I'm going to go to the horizontal line here, is I'm going to look and see, okay, what was the opening price for this market, and it was around here. So I'm going to mark that down. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to do, actually I'm going to take it from here. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to change it to yellow, personal preference, to denote open for me. Great. So now I've framed a little bit what's going on. Okay, I know, right, the overnight high, the overnight low. Why do I mark the overnight high and overnight low? Because I know there's a good probability that we touch the overnight high and overnight low during the trend, the kind of regular trading hour session. So if we consider this is the open, why is it the open? Well, it's the cash session open. So when all the Nasdaq stocks start trading, it's when we're not just speculating on where the collection of stocks will open, as is happening with the overnight session. It's where the stocks are actually opening, and why we get so much more volatility. So I've marked off my overnight high, marked off my overnight low, marked off my open. And now I can start to frame the day a little bit, and I can start to update as I trade along. I can start to go, right, I'm going to put in a low here, and I'm going to leave that as red, and I'm also going to put in the daily high up here, and I'm going to change that to green. Again, personal preference. You kind of get into routine, guys, of what you like. So now I can see what's happened, and you might also want to put in what's the opening range, high and low. So the opening range could be the first 15, half an hour, or hour, regardless. So anyway, point is, guys, how do we use this to make trading decisions? Well, overnight high or low, we know that it's likely to be tagged at some point during a trading day. That means we can position for a tag of that if, for example, we got an opening drive. I wasn't trading this, disclaimer, guys, but as an example, if we kind of got an opening drive, break the downside here, took the short, our target would be a scalp to the overnight low, because we know that's the high probability of being tagged. Similarly, the day type at the moment is setting out to be you know, a very weak type day. We put a horizontal line at the open, we go, right, that was where we opened, and so far we haven't really gone back to the open. So again, I'm using that as a reference point. I'm saying the high of the day so far is very close to the open, and the current price is nowhere near that. Now, when we go back on a higher time frames, we might say, hey, maybe we're due a little bit more of a pop, and that's something to analyze. But in this video, we want to focus really on the things that we need to do in the first hour of the trading day. Obviously, you can have your overnight high and low set, your open set. After you've had your first hour, you're marking your high and low. Now you're coming up with a bit of a roadmap and a thesis, and you're saying, okay, well, maybe if we double bottom through the low, we might rotate that back to the open. Or perhaps your other thesis might be, hey, if we start to push up and sort of pause a little bit around the kind of lunchtime session at the open, at the high, maybe we're going to push back into the midpoint of the day. I don't think we're going to push into the high. You start to be a bit more of a framework, but as the trading day goes on, guys, you can remove the overnight high low because it can become less valuable, because they've already tagged this level now. Now the more important level is the daily low. It's not the overnight low. We've been there, we've done that. That trade's disappeared. You remove that from the screen, and you just say, well, I'm going to work with the intraday low. I'm going to work with the intraday high and possibly the overnight high, because don't forget, transition of the market, we could go into range bound condition. Then in the afternoon, maybe you drive. If you get a change in sentiment and you get a drive, then your target might be the overnight high. So you're always constantly adjusting. We don't want too much information on. We don't want this level, that level. Sometimes people will put on a resistance level from the overnight session. I don't mind that. I'm not a huge fan of it. You know, there'll be one there and you can see how it's kind of stuck to it, but to me it's more important putting on key levels that are happening intraday now. So let's just get rid of that. So I might say, okay, well, there's a little level there, so I might be more inclined to put it here. That's kind of a swing high a couple of times, but we're still early days. We're still kind of just getting into the trade. We've not been open very long, but this is how I would start to frame my day and start to come up with a roadmap. If I didn't have a specific plan going into the day, I might be like, right, what are the clues from the overnight session? What are the clues from the opening session? Where are my levels? Where are they in relation to it? This example is we've got the high, which actually happens to be the open, and we've been doing lots of work below the overnight low. That's suggestion of weakness. Will it be sustainable? Who knows? That's it's your trade thesis to come up with. But here you start to build a plan and an idea. So whether you're trading Nasdaq, Dow, S&P 500, any of those, and they're all available on Pepperstone here, you just scroll down, open the indices. Your Dow is down here, US 30, US 500 is your S&P 500, and your NAS 100 is your Nasdaq 100. If you want